Now for our roundtable with Mary Anna Mancuso and Brian Crowley, our News Channel 5 political analyst, with what's top of mind for them in these closing days of the campaign.
You know, one of the interesting things that seems to be happening in this election cycle as the early voting and the mail-in voting has really ginned up is we're seeing a surge in young voters 18 to 35. It's much higher numbers in both the Republican and the Democratic Party, and even no party affiliated voters than we've seen in past election cycles. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of impact the young voters have on this election cycle.
Mariana, what are you looking for?
Well, the one thing that I've really enjoyed seeing is the fervor and the energize of all of the electorate showing up to vote early, the lines, even here in South Florida specifically, because it's been a bit soggy outside, but to see the lines and people showing up and really casting their ballot and taking time to exercise their civic duty has been very, very exciting for me.
Mariana, the final debate, did it likely change many minds or simply cement them and perhaps create more intensity for both sides to go out and vote? What do you think?
The final debate really was on brand for both candidates. Trump was very measured. They were able to rein him in from the first debate, although any performance after the first debate was actually an improvement for him, while Joe Biden maintained that he was sticking to his guns and he was talking directly to the American people. Did it move the needle? Absolutely not. I wouldn't say that it did. I think what it did is it solidified both bases and hopefully maybe brought out a few more people who were like, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. But really, if you didn't know what you were going to do at the end of the debate, I'm not sure where you've been for the past year and a half.
Brian, do you share that view? The debate probably didn't change a lot?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think the debate moved the needle one way or the other. I mean, if, you know, to the president's credit, he was a little calmer than he normally is in these things. And some people have pointed that out. But, you know, that calmness ends pretty quickly after the debate. Biden didn't make any enormous mistakes, so I think both of them did fine. And if you're still undecided at this point in the election, I just don't get it. I mean, I don't know what additional information you need to be decided in this election.
Mariana, such a big state here. Do each candidates have a make or break voting block, or are we simply too diverse to say the 65 and older vote that President Trump's fortunes will rise and fall specifically on that, or Joe Biden on the youth vote, or for either of them, the Hispanic vote, certainly, of course, the critical African-American vote? How do you size that up?
I think with Florida, we are such a diverse state. We are such a large state. I don't think that there's necessarily one issue that drives a voting block, but there's a couple issues: healthcare, climate change. Those issues are really going to keep people excited, and it's going to drive them to the polls. But sometimes I'm sure they will find themselves split in who they're going to support depending upon that issue. But I don't think it's just one issue that rallies a group of people to the polls in Florida.
Brian, how do you read that?
Well, this has always been a complicated state. I mean, the population is extremely diverse. People in North Florida are different from the people in South Florida. The people on the West Coast are different than people on the I-4 corridor. You know, but I do think there may be one issue that unifies everybody. They may not agree on the issue, but I think the COVID-19 response is something that people are talking a lot about. The economy is something people talk a lot about. If there's a mistake that I think President Trump makes with the economy, he measures it against the stock market. Most Floridians are not, you know, their personal well-being is not based on the stock market. It's based on that paycheck. And if they don't have a paycheck coming in, that's the economy they care about.
Final thoughts from both of you. Congressional races, amendment questions, will they be things that allow us to read tea leaves as to where the national sentiment may be? And how do you kind of look sort of beginning locally and the arc of that sentiment as to what it may mean in the race for the White House? Mariana.
I think that when we think about the sentiment of the nation, Florida is a great bellwether. You know, we are one of the deciding factors, if not the deciding state, on who gets to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But when we look at these congressional races, we look at Pam Keith versus Brian Mast, we look at Laura Loomer versus Lois Frankel locally, those races will actually show us, and I can't believe I'm even going to mention this, but bear with me, the 2022 cycle and beyond, and what that means for each party in general, and how far either right or left those elections are going to go.